Let's play this then.
All right, let's start with let's talk about I'm literally forgetting his name. Maradona.
Diego Maradona.
Yes.
Diego Armando Maradona.
Let's talk about it. And what is this clip we're going to play first? And why should we be talking about it? I mean, there's an amazing new HBO documentary about this guy. One of the best soccer players of all time with really interesting politics.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the more fascinating sports figures of the last like 30, 40 years. He's obviously a great player. Probably
we're going to play this out loud so Nando can translate for us. So we'll do that in a minute.
Maybe one of the best to ever play. Probably the best. Top three. But this clip, I picked it out because it's famous for, it's probably the most famous soccer goal in history. It was the quarterfinal of the 1986 World Cup against England. Argentina won 2-1. Maradona scored both goals. The first goal, he scored it with his hand, which is illegal, but he got away with it.
Nice.
And then the second goal was this one, which is widely considered probably the best goal ever scored. But it's one of those rare soccer moments that happen live on the biggest stage. The best player in the world stepped up, scored one of the best goals of all time. But the commentator on Argentine TV, Victor Hugo Morales, delivered the most amazing sports call ever. Like, he completely met the moment perfectly. And it's just worth listening to.
This is awesome. Okay, and you'll translate it for us?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Let's play this.
Ahí la tiene Maradona, lo marcan dos, pisa la pelota Maradona, arranca por la derecha el genio del fútbol mundial y deja el tercero tocar para Borruchaga siempre Maradona, genio, ta.
So he's going crazy, obviously. I want to cry. Long live soccer. Golazo. Diego. It's to cry for. I'm sorry. Maradona. On a memorable run. The greatest play of all time. Barrilete Cósmico is a cosmic like keg, like a barrel, because he looked like he barreled like through the players.
He did.
What did you do to leave behind so many Englishmen? Everyone, the entire nation is a fist crying out for Argentina. It's amazing.
That's amazing. That play is amazing too.
He was literally crying in the broadcast. The play-by-play guy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's
so
amazing.
talk more about his style of play and his politics.
So
this guy's fascinating.
He was like one of those guys who was like a very intense competitor and always kind of lifting up his team constantly. Like everyone who's played with him like always talks about like how, you know, like if you messed up a pass, like he'd run over to you and he'd be like, come on, we can do this. You know, like he was constantly like all over the place. And then he was just like an absolute genius. Like he could do everything. Like he was absolutely magical, but he could, you know, he could score, he could pass. Like he just had it all. But sort of as he got older and retired from soccer, he became a very outspoken supporter of leftist politicians all over Latin America. He was a huge supporter of the Pink Tide all over the place and was very good friends with Fidel Castro. And it's actually like Fidel Castro basically saved his life. Maradona, like, you know, had a lot of drug problems throughout his whole career, his whole life. He still does. A lot of health issues as a result. And at one point he was like near death, and Castro brought him to Cuba and basically put the Cuban health service at his disposal, and it brought him back. But there's a great story of one of the times like when he first visited Cuba. Maradona and his sort of cohorts went on a huge bender all night. You know, cocaine and drugs, and alcohol, and they were just partying all night. And in the morning,
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I've never done that. And in the morning, when they were still up partying, Castro shows up, and you know, like they hadn't realized, like they lost track of time and whatever. And they're like, and all of a sudden they hear like "Comandante."
Fidel himself shows up to where they've been partying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they just hear like "Comandante," and so like the entourage is all startled because they have to, like, you know, they're like cleaning up everything like last second as like El Comandante is walking up from the car to the house, and they look around when Fidel walks in, and they realize that Maradona isn't in the room. So they're like, okay. So like, they're like, el comandante is here to see Diego. Like they saying it loudly so that he could hear him, and he would know that Fidel Castro's in the room. You know.
Right.
And so they say that the story goes that Maradona walks out with a toilet seat around his neck, like as if it was a necklace. And he said that Castro was just absolutely stunned, like just completely silent for like 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden Diego just goes like, "Comandante," and behind his back he had the toilet seat, like the lid,
right,
and on the bottom of it was Bush's face, just printed on it, and Castro just lost it, and he gave him a big hug. It was great.
What was the style of play like? Like what made it stand out from like a game perspective?
So he was an elite dribbler. You know, he was just like you can see in that goal, like he could just get past people with astonishing ease. And he was also just like a genius in terms of his vision. He always knew what the right play was. He had a very low center of gravity. He was like really short and stocky, and he had like very low center of gravity, so he was really hard to knock off. Even though back then they would allow a lot more rough play, and you know, in the documentary you see like a lot of close-ups, and it's like, man, they definitely
went at each other
so much harder back then than they do today.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just such an inspirational player that, you know, in the documentary they show how when he got to Napoli, which is not a great team, and it never has been. It's like one of the sort of third-tier teams in Italy. He went there after kind of not really succeeding at Barcelona, which was a big team. And he shows up to Napoli, which is obviously in the south of Italy. It's much poorer than the north. There's a huge cultural divide in Italy between the north and south. Like northerners are just, quite frankly, pretty racist against southern Italians, you know. And Maradona really like identified with that kind of person, you know. He really likes the downtrodden, you know. He hates like rich people, and you know. So he really identified with the city and their sort of struggle for legitimacy within Italy, and he won 2 leagues with them, which is astonishing. Like they had never won anything before, and they've never won anything since. And he was competing against like some of the greatest teams of all time, and he still managed to beat them with, frankly, a bunch of mediocre players around him. You know, he didn't have any great teammates, both in his World Cup win.
Not so like way more extreme than Jordan and the Bulls.
Yeah.
Jordan actually did have.
He had Pippen and Dennis Rodman. I mean, two Hall of Famers.
No, but it's just written in a way of like he was with a bunch of schmucks, and he wasn't. In this case, Maradona really was. I want to say bunch of schmucks.
Bunch of schmucks. Yeah.
All right.
No. So yeah, he obviously like he's got a lot of drug problems, and he got a lot of problems with his weight, and he can be kind of goofy, so he gets made fun of a lot. But it's this sort of like steadfast support for pink-tide politicians, steadfast like anti-imperialism, like always speaking out against imperialism. That's one of the reasons why he's kind of loathed by a certain type of fan,
right?
You know what I mean? And
Definitely.
Kind of mocked in the media a lot because of that. But if you actually stop and listen, he's got some pretty serious political commitments that he sticks to, and it's impressive. And he's got like a giant Che Guevara tattoo. He kind of put his money where his mouth is. Like there's a really famous story of he wrote a autobiography, and he donated all the money that he got from that book to Cuba.
Wow.
All of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's definitely watch the documentary.
Yeah.
And more conversations between Nando and I on this type of thing are coming up too. But let's get to the bad. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.